Welcome to Weekend Night Live, hosted by Samuel Jacobs Abbey, where we play music, talk shows, and interviews on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Stay tuned and keep your dial on www.beinspiredpodcast.com. Don't forget to stay connected, be inspired, be unique, and be different.
Everybody to the program, and we're coming to you live today from New Jersey in the U.S. Richard and Vivian Crabbe here, usual speakers on the program, presenters, and we're being linked worldwide across cyberspace by Be Inspired Radio Podcast.com. Greetings to Samuel Jacobs Abbey and his team. We appreciate what you do for this program that is also being produced by Dynamic Relationships. So, social media and relationships. Is social media killing your relationship? First of all, let's establish what social media is. Social media refers to forms of electronic communication such as websites for networking and some say merchandising, but usually it's microblogging, and several of them are available. We'll look at some of them, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content, such as videos. They've become more popular these days. So when you're thinking about the social media of what we call the cyber sphere, as an atmosphere, we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, we have Twitter, we have Pinterest, a whole host of dating sites, eharmonymatch.com, we've got WhatsApp. There's so much available now. And we want to see how all of these affect our relationships, maybe influence.
This conference is being recorded.
It is important to note right from the beginning that social media is still evolving, but very, very fast. Smartphones have replaced, the cell phones we had just 5 years ago. Everything is now so fast, direct, and yes, you can even make them secret communication options. So smartphones, are now managing all aspects of our relationship. Your calendar, not just your messages, your phones, all of them. All kinds of relationships are being managed now by smartphones. And so overall, social media has changed the way we meet and interact with each other. It provides a platform to learn more about people we want to associate with. And social media also allow us to share almost anything we want. This is what we need to understand. Social media enable us to share almost anything we want. And at the same time, we can also learn a lot about friends and family. Even people we do not know, we can connect with all over the world. Social media can also help us connect with old friends from the past. And as you can tell, this can be a lot of fun. Sometimes it can also create problems. So we have a few questions as we go on. Do you feel your partner's phone has taken over your place in your partner's heart? Do you wonder if the tablet now holds some secrets that you wish you could find out? And we're talking tablet as in electronic tablets. Have you experienced better relationships or marriage because of social media? Or do you think that social media has become a threat to your relationship or marriage? And yes, we also need to consider if social media can help us strengthen our relationships. Now, as I said, most of the different expressions of social media we have. Please mute your phones if you're on the line. Thank you. The different types of social media we have, here in the U.S., but all over the world, really. This is not a, Western, Eastern, Southern, Northern, developing versus developed world. Social media operates everywhere. And it's hard, really, to find anyone who isn't involved in social networking on the internet. That includes married people. And this raises and people in relationships. So, we'll be looking at the implications of online social interaction for these relationships, whether they're beneficial or they do impact us in negative ways. And so, to start with, it helps to look at the positive aspects of it, because I think sometimes we tend to think, because of the title, no. Is social media killing your relationship? Let's see some potential benefits, of social media. One is connecting people. In our relationships, we can use social media to connect and as one writer puts it, to create a healthy connection, during the day, during the week, even when we are apart, messages, even short videos of what we're involved in, something we've seen. Part of the family is on a trip somewhere, they can be sending photos back in real time. Facebook seems to be the most popular medium around the world. WhatsApp is catching up in many places also because of its free platform it has that needs just data to work on and consumes less than some of the other types of social media. But we can use, these, whether it's FaceTime to talk with family, Facebook, just to post news or photos, there's Instagram. People in real time can be participating with what you're doing, stuff like that. At the same time, it helps us to know what each other is involved in, as I said, in real time. This allows us to have some accountability, to each other. And yes, both of us, husband and wife, partners in a relationship, can use the media to hold each other accountable. You know where I am, I know where you are. Yes, I know somebody who, had to send a video, short video of where he was to his wife to prove he was where he said he was. This can happen to anyone. This helps us keep each other honest, as the saying goes. But we can also use social media to improve our relationships. Yes, some research has indicated that social media, when used appropriately, can add intensity and immediacy to face-to-face relationships. What does this mean? Well, let's say you meet someone at a function, you kind of hit it off, and then you're separated by distance. Social media can help you nurture that relationship, which you may have been together, maybe at somebody's wedding, at a party, you met at some social event, work-related event perhaps, and then that was it. Social media can help you locate each other, for example. It could be Facebook, or sometimes maybe you exchange phone numbers and you can continue the relationship that way, And that's something that's positive. It's also been said that social media can be a useful springboard to new relationships and friendships. There is data to suggest increasingly young people are finding their mates, not just dates, but finding their mates through social media, through dating sites such as eharmony.com, match.com. Yes, for some people, that's it. One research we read said about 1 out of 3, more than a third of U.S. marriages now begin online through dating sites and social media networks. That's a lot. More than 1 out of 3, beginning that way. And then, it does help also we can use social media to create support groups. We do know about youth groups, church groups, alumni groups, all using social media to connect with each other, sharing news, sharing photos. My secondary school, alumni group, our year group, based out in West Africa, Ghana, West Africa, got together, and within minutes I was seeing the photos, by the end of the whole function, there's a whole host of people have changed over the years, and somebody was asking, another person on the platform was asking if someone should identify people according to where they were sitting or standing in the photos. This can help us reconnect, creating some community among ourselves. We've discovered each other all over again, and people who were friends in the teens, now pushing 60, we are reconnecting. And it's wonderful to do that. It can be done for marriages. Some people have marriage support networks or relationship support networks, and they're using social media to do it. It can be an effective tool for networking, especially, when we were talking about common interests with friends and setting up fellowship groups or even organizing events, coordinating different programs, all can be very helpful through social media. These benefits are things that we shouldn't ignore and just think, oh yeah, this is what they said, because they're real and they're very helpful in that regard. I mean, most of you have received information about this podcast via social media. Several WhatsApp, I know, some did email, but, lots have got it through text messages, lots, on the Be Inspired podcast platform, as well as the website. These are helpful. Because of that, we can connect from Azerbaijan to Zimbabwe, Argentina all the way across to Zambia. We are all linked through the Be Inspired podcast platform, as well as the website and through the numerous channels we've had to disseminate this program. So there is some good. We can call ourselves the relationships community if you wish. We can give ourselves a name and we'll belong to it. Most of you say, yeah, I belong to the Be Inspired network. That's good. But as with anything, we also need to point out the possible risks because, yes, there are risks. And this is where sometimes some of us ignore to our own peril. Because as with anything good, yes, there can be problems as well. So what are some of the risks that can occur? Social media, by their very nature, can enable us, some of them, to create anonymity. We can hide behind the screen and be somebody else. We're talking with a group of young adults, teens, young adults, just this past week, and we pointed out the fact that anyone can create a persona. Anyone can create any image they want, on a network and begin to share news, all kinds of things. And you might think, oh, this is the person I am communicating with. This is the person I'm connected with. And it could be somebody totally different. Stories abound about this, I could create persona as a woman and you wouldn't know until you met me. So these are things we need to be aware of. The other thing is this. Even though, the privacy controls, etc., on all kinds of websites, we need to caution that you are never really anonymous. You're never really anonymous. With a few clicks, anyone who knows how to use the technology can find you. And that's important, Again, because, there is a seeming anonymity, people think they can say, do, post anything, photos included, and, we can always delete. There are websites that offer you that, this photo will disappear in X number of seconds, but you need to know this. Anything you put out in cyberspace can be retrieved. Anything. There is nothing that is lost forever. It can always be retrieved from somewhere. And that's what we all need to understand. Things we might not want others to see, they may actually be able to see. And yes, there is some level of secrecy, which also leads people to become less inhibitors, And, as we said, even though what you see on Facebook might not be the real person, yes, because they can be posting other people's photos there, or somebody else's photo, and you might think that's the real person. Being anonymous, in quotes, also makes people feel they can do or say whatever they want. Speaking with a group of young people like 2 weeks ago, a young lady said, I'm no longer on Facebook, for example, because it seems to have become a place for torture. And people seem to torture you. Whatever you post, there are those who have something negative to write. And some people seem to rebel in that. And then we also need to, the risk of, what one author puts as virtual reality versus actual reality. Virtual reality versus actual reality. What this means is that we all are likely to be tempted to believe everything we see or read on social media. Videos have been going around about plastic fish, images you think are the real thing, but they've been photoshopped. Young lady in Kenya became an internet star when she was posting photos or videos about her being traveling to different places until somebody, exposed her that she was actually photoshopping herself into some of those images. Photoshop means, we used to say cut and paste, but this is more than cut and paste. You actually cut the image from somewhere else, and yes, you can kind of merge with the existing photo and it makes it look real. But anyone with a trained eye can see it's not so. And this virtual reality thing can also lead people to displaying themselves or doing things that may not be what they would want to be remembered for. Yes, there are those who want to be seen and heard in certain ways, which is very different from what they otherwise would be, in normal life, so to speak. This has led some people to be stalked. Yes, they're stalking. And somebody begins to kind of follow you, much like somebody following you as you're walking down, usually a dark street, and there's nobody or very few people around. Some people are also able to spy on others through social media, and you might not know this. So it's important for us to point that out as well. Then, we can also become vulnerable to predators and opportunists. Let me take the opportunists first. People have used social media to deceive others. A video or a sub story about a cancer patient, a fundraising through social media. Some have been exposed to these scams. For example, one very big one about somebody needing cancer, and after all the money was collected, the money ended up being used for somebody's wedding. This makes people kind of wonder whether to trust. And anything that undermines trust undermines human relationships. Then there is the deception, not only through fundraising scams, for example, but people just logging on to sites, even lying their way. You can lie about your age, for example, and get on a network, And then, because people don't realize what could happen, that anonymity plus the misrepresentation added to somebody who can exploit the person, yes, has led to dangerous situations. Not too long ago, I think about a month ago, in Richmond, Virginia, here in the U.S., a mother shot an intruder who had flown from New Zealand to the U.S. to see her daughter. Turned out her daughter is only 16 years old. But whoever she was communicating with in New Zealand had no idea. She was only 16. There are stories of people who do know that the people they're talking to might be underage. Occasionally we get these things from the police. These are risks we need to see. Then we've also talked about the, privacy, that you can lose your privacy. People have posted things and then they realize, oops, there's trouble. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago, a student in Britain committed suicide because a posting he had made about a relationship, a brief relationship, ended up being circulated among the student body, caused him embarrassment, got him called before the authorities. He was suspended from the university and he couldn't take the embarrassment. Eventually he committed suicide. You can lose your privacy because once you put something out there, you have no way of controlling anybody forwarding it to others. Anybody who might be passing it to friends or friends of friends. This is important. So we are warned. It used to be think before you speak. Now it's think before you type. And it's important that we do know that these can happen, you know. And then we've also said, we've talked about the self-misrepresentation, but this also leads to something else. People see the photos, they see people, dressed in different ways, etc. And yes, it can lead to conflict, it can lead to jealousy, envy, yes, sometimes rivalry as well. But there's another aspect of it. It can lead to depression. And we'll come to that a little later as to the impact on relationships, And then, Vivian and I often love talking about, the present generation being the microwave and Instagram generation because of how they want everything, quick, everything happens so quickly. And just the speed of being online and, connecting with somebody else, this we think, from the work we've been doing, ministering to couples, speaking with young people about relationships and all that, we think this is making people misunderstand what developing friendship involves. It is not 2 clicks and, I have a friend in Iceland. Now I have 50 friends around the world. Are they really friends? How well do they know you? And how well do you know them? So really, the people we might even be calling friends may simply be clicks on our sites. And this is something we need to understand. But if we aren't careful, we will only have superficial friendships, not genuine friendship. Because real friendship takes time. And as we'll say later, it requires lots of personal and face-to-face interaction as well to truly and fully get to know someone. But one of the things that social media is creating, apart from bringing some connection between people, is that it's also causing people to become more isolated from others. Whereas, people used to meet face-to-face and talk, now we seem to be doing less of that and we're sending text messages, But nothing really can take place face-to-face contacts. And yes, social media can improve our friendships, but let's be careful about using them to replace genuine face-to-face contacts, Because when we do so, it becomes easy for us to go into our virtual worlds, our make-believe worlds that we can create. And one research we read not too long ago says, this current generation is the most connected one. Whether you're talking electronics, phone, all these websites, gizmos, everything, children have phones, children have tablets, older folks have it, great grandmas on Facebook, the Queen, all manner of people are tweeting. Everybody is connected somehow. But this generation also has been known to be the loneliest in terms of how people really feel, despite all the connections that we have. Because I guess deep down, people know that few check marks on a page or even 100 likes to something you post doesn't mean you really have 100 people who like you. And then we also need to think about this. Probably the biggest, what we consider the 2 very serious aspects of the influence of social media on relationships is the time that is lost, or shall we say, time that is spent on social media. Think time for posting photos of your latest vacation. Oh no, something that happened today. the time you used to post it, and then going online, doing various things, responding to people, and all that time adds up. And is it time really spent with people we want to develop close relationships with, husband to wife, parents to children, peer to peer, partner to partner? Let's think. One young woman said to us, my husband's phone has become his second wife. And then she said, I think the phone has actually taken my place as the first wife. I now feel like I'm second priority to his phone. This is serious stuff because time needed to be spent with each other, the most important people in our lives, we may be spending with others that we don't even know, who may be replacing those that we claim to love or are very dear to us. Another thing we're coming across in our relationships is what we might say are deteriorating, weakening communication skills. Texting is short, tweeting 140 characters maybe, short. These are not media for expressing oneself or for, in a way that you can fully explain things. In fact, many people we know, especially couples, have got into more trouble using text to explain themselves. Because one word out of place, and yet sometimes spell checker doesn't help. We understand that. That's why we need to be careful not to depend on these media to do the real work for us. Sometimes what actually happens in these media is that we actually disclose less than we otherwise would in a face-to-face chat or discussion. And also because of the very nature that we can hide behind a screen, it's very easy to be nasty in a text message. Saying it directly to the person could be more difficult. But it's a text, and then it's gone. What we also need to remember is that anything that is written can be a record. See, we're working with a couple, and the man was talking about how his wife was very insulting, in the words she used on him. She denied every one of them. And as she went on denying, he reached for his pocket, pulled out his phone, then scrolled to an exchange he had had. And there it all was. Yes, they had been texting each other, and she had been replying to his texts with insults. So let's beware. Whatever we send out on a text can be a record. We also need to mention a few things that have been documented for relationships. 1 out of 3 divorces start as online affairs. Maybe because it all seems anonymous, and then things grow more and more serious. This is something we ought to understand for ourselves. And when we think that everything is okay, nothing can be seen, no. And what is also important to remember is that it's not just what a partner is doing on social media, but how long they spend on it. This is why we think the time spent on social media is one of the biggest enemies of strong relationships, because it's time kept from somebody else. Here are a few things, call them statistics we pulled from a website, and it says 15, that's 15% of couples consider social media to be dangerous to their marriage. 16%, 16% of couples link Facebook use to jealousy. And then here's one I'm sure we'll be discussing when we come to question time. 1 out of 3 adults keep their social media passwords secret from their partners. So yes, this includes married people. Many married people keep their social media passwords secret from their partners. 1 in 10 adults admit to hiding messages and posts from their partners. Why are you hiding it? Isn't it good? And then here's another one. 14% of adults say they look through their partner's social media accounts for evidence of infidelity. Maybe that's why the partners don't want to reveal their passwords. But as someone has said, if you can't share your passwords, maybe there's something you're hiding. And 8% of adults in relationships admit to having secret social media accounts. You're wondering how is that? Pick a name. Use another name. That's it. 1 in 7 married people have contemplated divorce because of their partner's social media activity. Then we have 1 in 5 feel uneasy about their relationship, about discovering something on their partner's Facebook account. These are just some statistics to think about. If these are all okay, why are we fighting about them? So what can we do? How can we ensure that we use social media in a way that it will enhance our relationships rather than weaken them? Before we get to that, here is just some more. We want to share this with you because it is important to know. And a lot of the influence of social media, you can just go online, read about some of these things as well. A lot of it is negative, and as the more you read about it, you can see that it's tied not only to what people post and do, but it's also linked to what those posting, where they also go to, like websites they visit. As we said before, social media applications can, because they seem to be anonymous, can cause us to lower our inhibitions and barriers, making it simpler than ever to contact nearly anyone. So today we're having emotional affairs online. So, no, there's not, but then you review the messages that have been exchanged between the people, and this is not just a friendship. It's more than that, And the question also is this. For example, why make a phone call when you can send a private message with a picture or video to better engage the person? And so as many of you know, there's so many apps that exist to help us exchange provocative pictures and messages. So it's easier than ever to maintain multiple virtual and real-life relationships in secret. And so, emotional and physical affairs can now be delivered on demand, thanks to social media and technology. And that's why we feel it's important to understand the implications of a person's online activities so that we can all make more informed decisions. These are not things that we're just pulling out of the sky. Can social media hurt relationships? A lot you find on this would agree that yes, it does happen, And first, if you just look at the internet, it's saying that internet use or overuse does cause unhappiness. And, according to a Boston University study, for example, Facebook is a significant predictor of divorce rates and spousal troubles in the United States, you know. And they're saying, a group of divorce lawyers say one out of three, in 1 out of 3 divorce filings, being social media is cited as a contributing factor. So this is important to know, And as we said, one basic reason is spending too much time. And then also what you actually share. Does your partner agree that you share so much about yourself or about both of you? This is something we need to be careful about. Some have used social media to write things about each other like they're fighting. And it ends out on social media for other people also to see. Breakups. Some breakups are okay, people just using social media to break up. Or post-breakup fights, digging each other or needling each other through, social media. And we need to be careful because, as I said, these things become records. And we need to be careful what you're saying. One of the saddest times Vivian and myself was going to a restaurant. One morning we were there for breakfast. The young couple moved in, they also came in not too long after us. They took their seats and out came the phones. And the only time they paused to talk with each other, to each other, was when the waiter came to take their order. And they kind of looked at each other, said a few words. Waiter was gone. Both of them heads bowed again. Nope, they were not praying. They were back to their phones. And I wondered, are they, we were wondering, are they really having breakfast together with each other, or they're having breakfast with their phones? We also know people who posted things about themselves. We know about spouses who've gone, on some trip, and then they've taken photographs which turn out not looking so appropriate, arms around, people of the opposite sex, and, oh, this is just somebody I met, so why is your arm around her like that? Or, woman without her wedding ring. What's going on? With a group of people, and they're hanging out somewhere in a bar, so why doesn't she have a ring on? She's married. Things like that. So we need to be careful. Here's a study also from the University of Missouri here in the U.S. School of Journalism about what they call the Twitter effect and WhatsApp. And the study found that active Twitter users are far more likely to experience Twitter-related conflicts with their romantic partners. The research shows that these conflicts can lead to emotional and physical cheating, which can even end in breakup and divorce. Here's what another point we found. Outside the U.S., the president of the Italian Association of Matrimonial Lawyers, is the lawyers that deal with marriage, told the Times of London newspaper that 40%, that's 4 out of 10 of adulterous divorce cases in Italy cite WhatsApp messages as evidence of unfaithfulness. And he added, social media has boosted betrayal in Italy by making it easier, first through texting, then Facebook, and now WhatsApp. So this is serious stuff. And we need to ask ourselves, what will we do in our relationship so that we don't become a statistic, as these negative statistics for that matter? Because social media are increasingly part of our lives, and there's little we can do to stop that aspect, but yes, we can control how much we use. You know, it's also important to consider this. There's a question, researchers are still working on it as to, is it increased social use of social networking that is making people unhappier in their marriages and other relationships, or is it that the poor state of the relationship is what's driving them into social media? Either way, those who are using social media more are showing unhappiness in their relationships. And one study says non-social media users are more than 11.5% happier about their relationships or marriage. So there's something there. And as we said before, perhaps it's because time is being taken away from their partners. So a few other things that have been found in social media use, heavy use, I should say, things like unhappiness, depression, stress, and yes, a feeling of loneliness. And one study also found for some people, they're happier for using social media. But put together, the research so far is showing that increased use of the internet, increased use of social media over time is lowering overall well-being. We need to watch out that we also are not stuck in that way, because yes, these also form part of our relationships, and we have to make sure our relationships are healthy. We keep them growing. So what would we say? What are the implications for couples? Here are a few guidelines to think about. We just say, maybe principles, guidelines, tips. But it's important to keep everything in the open. Once there are things like secrets, especially between husband and wife, that could be room for suspicion. Yes? Why isn't he sharing his password? Why isn't she sharing her password? If there isn't anything secret, why can't I know? The counter is, why do you want to know? Are you suspecting something secret? What should be hidden anyway between husband and wife? And the question to guide us in keeping everything in the open is this. Before messaging, ask yourself, is this something I wouldn't mind my spouse seeing? You're posting something? Ask yourself, is this something I wouldn't mind my spouse, my partner seeing? This is important. And then when we need to say something, why don't we talk to the person who actually needs to hear it rather than post it through cyberspace? Ephesians 4 verse 15 says, we should speak the truth in love. So why don't we tell the person directly? Yes, it may be a marital problem, but why are you posting your marital problem on Facebook? Why are you posting it on WhatsApp and asking people to respond? It's more important, healthier actually, to speak face to face and then deal with it. And here's an approach. One counselor put forward. It says, to talk with the person directly and talk about what it is. Because I know you care about me, and I know you probably didn't think about it, but I feel, putting your emotion when is it when whatever the person does, and then you make sure, I don't want the problems to build that will isolate us. Can we work on this together? And if we want to use social media to connect as partners, husband and wife, why don't we use this to build each other up? Like I said, whatever you put on, messaging, posting, whatever kind, can always be retrieved, even if you delete it from your archives. Yes. And so, why don't we think about building each other up as well? Because that can be positive to the relationship, you know. And if, if as it said, that the value of your relationship depends on the amount that each of you invest in it, well, think of the time that you can invest in it as against the time you invest away from that relationship. So each of us needs to be intentional about growing toward oneness. Otherwise, yes, we will drift away. As we said before, that which does not grow is either dying or dead. And we don't want our relationship to be either. So let's be more intentional about strengthening our relationship and watching out for those things that might create problems for us. You know, a few tips we garnered from Focus on the Family as they, looked at this. They talk about best practices and suggest shared passwords. Interesting. Husband and wife having the same password or sharing their passwords so they can get into each other's accounts, And yes, it helps, as they say, to preserve the integrity of the marriage relationship. Let's hear what you have to say when we come to discuss it in questions, But also, it's important for each of us to establish boundaries. From the book of Proverbs in the Bible, chapter 4, verse 23 says, guard your heart with all diligence, because it is the source of life. Another version says, because from it flow the springs of life. Whatever we allow to take over our hearts, yes, will eventually take over our bodies, our minds as well. So we need to establish boundaries. I will not do X. I will not do Y. Or for both husband and wife, for example, partners, we agree on things we would or would not do, sites we would or would not do. And yes, it does help if we would agree that we would be, we would limit the time we spend on these sites and invest more time face to face or with each other. Even if your face to face is via Skype, FaceTime, or some other media that allows you to be able to see each other when we are interacting, And it helps to agree on these boundaries, For example, if people contact you, what if it's an old boyfriend, an old girlfriend, and what to do in those situations? This would be something that husband and wife can discuss together and then think about what they would do, and agree on what they can do, It's also important to limit the different ways we are accessing social media. There are all kinds of things, phone, laptop, our tablets, PCs. There's so many ways in which we can do this. For some, it's just, as we said, a smartphone that does everything, But even though all these are good, let's remember the tools, that are available to serve our purposes. And we need to think of how we can use them in a positive way. Unless you're no longer interested in the relationship you have. And if so, then you need to end it properly, rather than to be going behind your partner. That is unhelpful. And it's important also for us to remember that yes, because of the nature of social media, we may find ourselves thinking we've grown closer than we actually have. So this is important for us also to keep in mind as we relate to people online. And so finally, here are some questions to help us determine between partners, even individually, how we're doing on social media and how it could or it might be influencing our relationships. First, has my daily use of the internet, including social networking sites, increased? Has it increased? And if so, how helpful has it been, or is it, or has it become to my relationships, especially the ones that are closest to me? And then, has my partner, maybe a friend, somebody else, my spouse, commented or complained about the increasing time I spend on social media? Then a question from one of the researchers, I think it's the Boston research, says, am I as happy now as I was 2 years ago? Do I feel more stressed now than I did then? If I were to be honest, do I feel more lonely now than I did 2 years ago? Maybe instead of 2 years, to ask yourself, do I feel more lonely now than I did before I got hooked on social media? Let me finish with this anecdote. Listen to a radio station, and the host of the program, this is one of these programs, afternoon programs, helping you get home on your commute. And he said he had a question and invited listeners to phone in with their answers. The question he asked was, what's the first thing you check? Or what's the first thing you do when you get up? The overwhelming number of listeners who called in said, first thing I do is to check my phone. It was interesting. As he interacted with different callers, a pastor, a teacher, a wife, a husband, over and over he would ask them, you mean you don't even say, hello to your spouse? You don't do this and they say, oh that's true. That's true. To one person, I think it was a pastor, he said, oh, so pastor, you're saying you don't pray first? He says, well, I have to be honest, first thing I do is I pick my phone and check if I've received any messages. Let me ask this to conclude. Before all this happened, what did we do? Maybe that will inform some of our discussion and the decisions we have to make going forward. So social media enhances rather than kills, develops and strengthens rather than weakens and destroys our relationships. Thank you all for listening. The floor is now open for questions. And so, Sami, if you're there, or Alma, you can.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
God bless you so much, Dr. Crabbe. I believe we've all been impacted by the message you've given us on the effects of social media and how we can use it to our advantage in our relationships, and how it perhaps hurting us in our relationships. So at this point, it's time for questions and answers. As Dr. Crabbe said, you can. I believe many of us are listening via the radio station.
Be Inspired
Radio broadcast. And so if you have questions, you can direct it to Sam, or if you want to message me, you can also do that. You can send me a text, WhatsApp message, whatever it may be, whichever one works best for you. My number is 513-461-4547, 513-461-4547, and the floor is now open for questions. So Sam, if you have questions already, please go ahead and we can get the ball rolling.
Alrighty. Good evening to all the listeners out there, and a couple of questions have come in. So the first question is coming from Namibia, and it says that give me a second. Let me just go straight to that point. Oh, here we go. And it says that social media indeed may not always be used in a positive way. The understanding of using social media depends on the individual. It has a great potential of destroying relationships, but at the same time, when used effectively, it can build a relationship. My question to you, Dr. Crabbe, is when do we draw the line to know when exactly to access our social media and when not to? And this is from Namibia.
Well, it's difficult to say there is a right time and a wrong time, but I can give you instances where accessing social media would be inappropriate. I give the example of a couple coming, to a restaurant for breakfast. They whip out their phones and they're on social media. They're not even talking to each other. And you wonder whether they came to have breakfast together or they, with each other, or they came to have breakfast with their phones. You can be accessing social media in a meeting. You can be accessing social media while you are interacting, with a close friend, or with even somebody who's not a friend. Those can be inappropriate times, and we need to be sensitive to that, because when you're with somebody, you want to focus on the person. That you want the person to feel that they have your attention, and you want to feel that you have their attention as well. So this is something we need to, consider very carefully, before we do that. But also, as we have said, the time we spend is something we need to assess, that is to evaluate, so that we aren't taking away time that we should be investing in a relationship, or in certain relationships, we aren't using that time on social media with people we don't even know. So that's what we'll see.
You have to set yourself boundaries. If you wake up and the first thing you do is to go on social media, there's a problem. So you can discipline yourself that, there are things that I can do before I get on social media. If you and your partner, husband, fiancé, boyfriend, driving in a car, and the one driving, the other person is, right into social media the whole time, WhatsApp, whatever you are on, and you are not even chatting with each other, that is not good. You can discipline yourself to stop doing that so that you can have time to talk with each other. If it's look at the time that you use on social media every day and discipline yourself. You decide how much time you want to use every day for that, so that it doesn't interfere with any other thing.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, my question is, Dr. Crabbe, you mentioned that oftentimes when couples are having issues, you see that they are posting it somehow on social media, in diverse ways. What about couples that like to pretty much display their whole life? Sometimes it comes off as they're trying to put up a facade, of this happy life type of thing. What are your thoughts on that? Is that healthy? Or how do we balance the two? Or how do we work with that?
Yes, and it's interesting you say the couple love, to display their whole life on social media. Perhaps, a rider to your question is whether both of them want that displayed. Because, we were meeting couples where it's actually one person who wants to do that and the other person doesn't. In fact, in one, instance we know of, one of them said, I don't want my children's photos on social media. The other person said, oh, it's the best day, oh, it's the first day at school. And the other person said, no, I don't want my kids' photos on social media. So this can be a source of conflict. But let's assume both of them want their life out there. Okay? The question, social media allows you to do that. They want people to see their cushy life. Hey, life's good. But, okay, so what? How does that make the relationship better? And if they're feeding off the likes that they get from these postings to validate the kind of lifestyle they have, then that's a very shallow way of validating one's lifestyle. According to the likes you'll get on a posting. My new bag, here's me in my new outfit. Oh, here we are on vacation at the beach and all that kind of stuff. Well, one will say, who wants to read this? Who wants to see this? Some people will like it. People are making money off these things, so, they might like, but the key is between the two of them, how healthy is the relationship? I don't want to think all negative, that it's just a facade. But the question is, why do we all have to see how you're living?
And sometimes you need to be very careful. There have been instances where homes have been burgled because they posted everything on social media. They were on vacation. It gave people the idea there was nobody home. And before they came, they were burgled. So we need to be careful.
Thank you. Very good question.
I have a statement question.
Mm-hmm.
So about what Mrs. Crabbe said, how you can check. Some of the phone companies actually send a data at the end of every month about your data use, and it will break it down how much you're on social media on the web. So that's one objective way to that you can keep track of certain behaviors in terms of social media. Mr. Crabbe, I went off the teleconference at some point. There has to be somewhere, but so I may ask a question that you probably talked about, and it has to do with before I say that, there's also another scientific fact I wanted to share. People who have addictions to cocaine addiction, it's involves a certain part of the brain, and if I recall very well, research has shown that social media addiction, it involves the same part of the brain that involves addiction to cocaine, heroin, that kind of stuff. So is that reward, I forget the term we use in science to describe that part of the brain. So it has all the components or everything that has to do with addiction. So the social media addiction is actually real. It doesn't have to be cocaine or those kind of things that we traditionally think about addiction. So it's real scientifically. Now my question is about how do you deal with, and it's unique, where a couple, one of the biggest issue is that virtual reality that social media provides. And it makes it very hard, where one is more into that and the other one is not. What are some of the steps that you counsel a couple how to go about it? Like, how do you discuss with your spouse? And because I think it's not something that you discuss once and it's done. But how do you go about it over time period, trying to cultivate it, try to minimize that habit or make it work for you? And that's why I said maybe I may have been off during that time if you did talk about it.
Oh, no problem. We said a little about it, but there is an opportunity. And thank you first for the additional information you've given. This is also insightful. We felt at some point we were giving too much statistics about these things, and we didn't. But this is excellent. The way you've even put it, that about the addiction and the part of the brain that seems to be fed and satisfied, by that. Oh, okay, by the addiction. How does a couple talk about this? Well, first of all, you need to have the information about how much time the person is spending on social media. So that's the first thing. If you have that, okay, and that's why we said time is often the major issue here, because that time invested in social media could be invested in the relationship. At least part of that could be invested in the relationship. So this is one way you can do that. And yes, you're right. It may not be once, but what often happens is that when couples begin to talk about this, it's more of a statement saying, you are spending too much time. But what we don't do is to find out, why are you spending so much time? And that's why we said you start by having the information about the time being spent. Why are you spending so much time? But we don't stop there. But, to be able to say, I would like, or how about, and then you make a suggestion as to how some of that time can be invested in the relationship, stating very clearly how you, the person who feels concerned about it, stating clearly how he or she would appreciate, having some of that time to develop their relationship. See, when we make statements that you are spending too much time, why and do not come up with suggestions as to how some of this time could be used and the benefits it would bring to the relationship, we kind of leave that person hanging as to a thou shalt not, without them feeling that there's another benefit to it.
Let your partner know how you feel neglected when they're on social media. Cite example. Give practical example, like, maybe I wanted to talk to you about so and so last night, but you were on social media the whole time, so I couldn't discuss with you. There were things I wanted us to do, but you were on social media at such and such a time, and so I couldn't do it with you. I feel neglected when you are on social media. We are traveling, we're going somewhere, and for maybe we're driving about an hour, about 2 hours, and the whole time I'm driving, you were on social media the whole time, and you were not even sharing anything with me. And sometimes you laughed by yourself, you were reading things, looking at things, and we were two separate people in the car, and I feel neglected. Let the partner know about these things instead of just getting angry about the whole thing. And some people retaliate because the partner is doing that, they also start. It doesn't get anywhere. We need to talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you too. And yes, what you said, I want to just emphasize it, that there is something as social media addiction. And, there is research and there is discussion in the medical community, especially on the psychiatric side, that social media addiction should be treated as a psychiatric disorder or disease. So those listening, this is something that is gaining traction in the medical community. And we need to be aware that yes, we can become addicted to social media. If you just want to check a simple, test, might be not to check your social media for a while and see how long you can go in a day. Let's just take one day without going on social media to check your status or to update your status or to, check on other sites. That might give us all a clue as to whether we're hooked on social media or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional question coming from here, and this is coming from Belgium, and it says that the use of social media in many times have been portrayed to be a negative resource, but I beg to differ. I have primarily used social media to enhance my marriage. Maybe in my situation because my wife works for the government, and so she's been deployed to another country, and so we use social media a lot to interact, and it has brought us closer than we thought. Had it not been social media, I wonder how my relationship would have felt. So what is your take about the effective use of social media for people whose spouses have been deployed?
Thank you so much. Maybe you missed a part of our presentation. We did cite the use of social media to enhance relationships, especially when people are apart. And we did say so, that on a journey, for example, you can be using that, and yes, being deployed is excellent for that purpose. I mean, we ourselves, Vivian and myself, have used that a lot. When one of us, is on a trip, and we are apart, yes, we do use social media to communicate, whether it's FaceTime or Skype or, sometimes sending WhatsApp messages, or WhatsApp video phone calls. We have used them, yes, and they do help. We didn't say all that is negative. In fact, we did mention some benefits of social media, right at the beginning, even before we went into the race. So we have endeavored to present a balanced view of it.
Yes, it can help. The danger for you, my friend, is when the two of you come together. When the two, you are far away from each other, so you are using it and it's good. Watch out when you come together that it doesn't draw you apart. Because if you are hooked on it, you will be doing it and you won't realize that, you are together now and you are very far away from each other now. So watch it. It's good, but watch how much you do about it, especially when you are together.
Thank you very much. And this is also coming from Australia. And it says that social media is a part of our modern society. but there are also dangers in social media if couples let it get out of control. My question to you is that how do we maintain, or is it advisable for couples to maintain a separate social media life, or is it just appropriate that we just follow the order of the day? Thank you.
Interesting question. If you've listened to us for a while now, you know that we do not prescribe, but we do lay out the facts there, and we encourage you on the basis of facts to make your own decisions. The basic principle is this: we can use or deploy the benefits of social media in our relationships, but we also need to be aware that without discussing, as husband and wife, without discussing the boundaries of our social media use, either of us can abuse it. That is, we can use it wrongly. And the goal we would like to think for both husband and wife would be to enhance their relationship as well as other relationships they both are aware of. I want to repeat that. So if husband and wife want to get into social media or are into social media, they need to consider whether their involvement is enhancing their relationship as well as other relationships they are both aware of. Because the moment you begin to have secret relationships that the other does not know about, we may be laying the grounds for problems within our relationship with each other as spouses. So thank you. That's what we have to say on that. But talk about it and focus on the family first. You should think about sharing your passwords. Just so nobody's worried about anybody having anything to hide. We've heard couples say, oh, but this is my privacy. What is so private between husband and wife? The different thing is you're not married, but you're married. What is so private that you make it separate and keep it from your spouse? This is important for us to seriously consider. Our goal as a couple is to strengthen, develop our relationship, not to be looking for other ways to interact with other people away from ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is coming from Afrakuma, and he says that is it wrong to be private in your relationship because both parties have chosen to be private from social media? However, how about a relationship that is hidden from your parents or elders? Is it wrong to keep it private in a world where relationships are normally posted online?
Can you repeat the second half again? Because it's not very clear. To keep it from your elders, is it about parents? We didn't get it quite right.
So it says that, so let me read the entire question again. It said, is it wrong to be private in your relationship because both parties have chosen to be private from social media? However, how about a relationship that is hidden from your parents or elders? Is it wrong to keep it private in a world where relationships are normally posted online?
Well, okay, so this is maybe you're talking to somebody, you're getting close to somebody, and you're not posting anything online. If we understand it right, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a difference between not sharing anything about your relationship online as opposed to hiding it from your parents, for example. That's a different thing, because they're part of your life. Eventually you'll be introducing this person. So maybe you don't feel it's the right time. Okay, for whatever reason you need to do that. But if it's a serious relationship, and we think it's something your parents should know, unless there's another reason why they shouldn't know. And that, without having said so, we can't say anything about that particularly. But yeah, we think it makes sense. We post very little about ourselves, for example, online, and that's not even a decision we took to make our relationship private. But why do we need to post, stuff about our relationship out online? We do post our programs, and invitations online, yeah, but we don't need to let, all of you know when we have a dog, or we don't let you know, when we're moving to a new neighborhood, for example, or to let you see, the new lawn we have laid in our house, or we bought new furniture. No, we think it's totally unnecessary. That's our view. But others think otherwise. And yeah, that's their view. So we don't have a problem with it. But if it has to do with family relationships or relationships that family need to know about, you need to carefully consider how to be able to you can still introduce each other to your families, your parents, without posting anything online. That can be done. So, okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. The other question here is coming from Sierra Leone, and it says that social media is really, really, really destroying relationships. And it's so funny that Dr. Crabbe just talked about it, because my wife and I went to have dinner, and there were two couples sitting next to us, and exactly what you described. Since they entered into the restaurant, they were on their phones, and while they were eating, they were still on their phones. And so my wife and I looked at each other and wondered if these people are actually couples or just friends who are rather talking to their spouses at home. It's really a big issue. Now, from your experience, what practical advice will you give to up and coming couples who may not consider this as a problem, but I truly think it is a major problem? Any advice?
Well, just our view is this. If I'm having dinner with my wife, my phone has no place at the table. My phone is not part of the dinner. And I think, we are increasingly allowing our phones, excuse me, or tablets or laptops to rule our lives, especially the phone. And that's why we asked the question at the end of our presentation. Before all of these networking sites, social media came into being, what did we do? We would sit and talk with each other whilst eating together, which has been shown by research to be very healthy and as a way of deepening communication between any two people who would do that. Just think. A few years ago, maybe you were in school, high school. Some of your closest friendships were forged partly in the cafeteria as you sat next to people to eat. In secondary school, boarding house, as you interacted with people, walking to and from class. And this is something we should encourage more. And then when we think about couples, we know about couples who have instituted curfews, phone curfews. Sometimes they might say during meal times, no phones. One couple shared with us that after a certain time in their home, they both husband and wife both switch off their phones. This takes discipline. And, if that's a decision, as a couple you'll take, it's important to keep it so. One person does not decide, oh, my messages are more important than yours. We do know about people, first responders, medical staff, etc. We do know about that. That's not what we're talking about. People on call. No. But we're talking about husband and wife, the average couple. How can you ensure that the phone does not rule your life? This is very important.
Still talking about it, discipline yourself. You don't have to pick up every phone call. There are times you are chatting, you're talking with each other, and someone calls. It's not an emergency. You don't have to pick up that call. That is why the answering system is there. So, if anything, the person can leave a message and you can get to them later. And you can even reply by texting, I can't talk to you right now, or I'll call you later, anything. You can discipline yourself. We're talking this time. I don't have to answer any phone calls. You can let it go. It's up to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is coming from Ghana. Ghanaians, we have a way of embracing negative things. And so social media, like you rightly said, is affecting a lot of marriages in Ghana. Maybe it's about time you come back to Ghana to come and help us, because young marriages are suffering for lack of knowledge. The problem here is that there's no privacy in marriage again. When families or married couples go to the bathroom, they take selfie and put it on social media. When they are kissing, it's on social media. Where there's absolutely no privacy. So, Mr. Crabbe, where do we draw the line? Because I thought it's important that some things must be kept within the family, because that probably may build the strength of the family, rather than exposing every secret thing of the family on social media. Literally, people wake up in the morning expecting to read or view certain pictures of certain couples, and it has consistently been so. Why should that be?
Well, as we've been saying, and again, some people like to exhibit themselves. So for them, that's what they live for. The people who have even made it into TV programs or, YouTube, characters for that matter. So that's what they live for. That's the life they've chosen. But for anyone listening, for example, the point is what you want for your relationship. You see, that's why we said it isn't everything posted online that may have the consent of the person in it. And we need to be sensitive to that. If the couple have chosen to display their lives that way, well, that's their choice. But let's make sure that when we're posting something that involves our spouse, if you're married, or if you are in a serious relationship, or even one that's starting, just make sure that when you're posting something, your partner, your spouse would agree with it. That's why we asked the question earlier. Before messaging, before posting anything, ask yourself, is this something my spouse would want to see online? Is this something my partner would want to see online? For us, that's a good enough test before we post it. And maybe we should also add that if we were really, really serious about our relationship, we would ask ourselves, how does posting this online, how does messaging this fact improve our relationship? The answers to those two questions would help us decide whether or not to post it. And if our goal is to deepen our relationships, we should think very seriously about how we will answer the question, how will my messaging this, how will my posting this deepen my relationship with my partner, my relationship with my spouse? Thank you, Sami.
Thank you very much. So now let's go to Pakistan. And it says that I would like to present an alternative perspective on the issue. I think before blaming the social media, we need to look at the kind of family system we have. We need to find out reasons why our children are extensively dependent and relying on social media, because social media provides them that space that we, the parents, could not provide to our kids. if we revisit the kind of style of communication between our families and our children and their dependency, then this use of social media can reduce drastically. Because the truth is that most married couples do not talk to themselves anyway, so social media has even made it worse. What do you think? This is purely academic perspective I'm trying to introduce here. Thank you.
I think you have given the answer yourself. That is why you should develop the time with each other. Discipline yourself to talk with each other. Why is it that most married couples don't talk to each other? They do. You are wasting your time on social media. You are finding reasons why you do that because we are not talking. So stop and talk to each other. Make time for each other and lessen the time on social media. It's up to you. You discipline yourself to do it and don't blame anybody else. It is we ourselves. If the fault is from us, we should sort ourselves out and begin to start talking.
You know, just this past week we've been at a camp meeting and speaking with a group of young people. We learned something from them. It was wonderful, you know. And this point came up, and they said we want our parents to have family time. So if you are parents, ball is in your court. You know, we were thinking more of older people, but it's good that you brought in the perspective of the children as well. And this is what these are teenagers, and they're saying, yeah, it's not like we don't want to talk, but our parents are not wanting to discuss issues we raise with us. That's something any parent should be thinking about. So what do? They go chat with their friends, who almost invariably give them the wrong advice and also cause them to drift further away from the family into the hands and into the lives of their friends, who may not all be the right kind of company they need to keep. So it's up to us as parents, and yes, any children who might be listening along with their parents, might be good to put away your phone sometime and just talk with each other. Thank you.
All right. So the question that came from Pakistan, he just sent a follow up. I think that Mrs. Crabbe may have misunderstood me. I don't have a problem with that at all. I understood the question. I was only presenting alternate fact because my doctoral research was on the impact on social media on marriages. So I have written extensively as a professor on this subject. And I thought that one of my research premise was that most marriages, well, maybe because I'm talking about Eastern Asia, most couples don't talk. They don't have that bonding, that relationship, because most couples in this part of the world are usually an arranged marriage, or there's no real bonding. And so maybe that is the perspective I was trying to express. So if Mrs. Crabbe misunderstood, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you from Pakistan. But let's also assure you, it is not only in Asia, South Asia, East Asia, where this is happening. Even in places like the US, Europe, parts of Africa, places where there are no arranged marriages, places where the people, they met by themselves and got married, they are also not talking. And yes, so it's not only there. Maybe these media are causing us all to be drifting further away from each other. So unfortunately, it's worldwide. I think we're confident enough to say this is a worldwide issue. We were looking at something a little earlier. 28% of people who use social media regularly check their phones before they get out of bed. when they wake up, before they have got out of bed, they check their phones first. 28%. So this is not just, a South Asia issue. No good morning, no hello honey, no. First thing, check social media. Then I check if my spouse is around. If I will. But that's what's happening, So thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is coming from South Africa. I said, you are so right, and I never lost anything at all when I gave up my sleep to listen to your show. Thank you so much for the insight. I'm a pastor here in South Africa, and I can tell you that even as a pastor with pastors under me, the addiction of social media is even affecting my ministry. I even though I have tried as much as possible to pray, I spend so much time on social media in the name of evangelizing through social media, and it is actually having a toll on me and my relationship. And so this is a very good program, and thank you so much for sharing. I don't have any question. It's just to let you know that all that you are doing is helpful to all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you from South Africa. God bless you and your ministry. And we will also be praying that you will be able to spend less time on this and more time with the people you are shepherding face to face. God bless you and your work.
Thank you very much. And one coming from California, and it says that, how do you explain when I have over 1.2 million Twitter followers? How will I not respond to their questions? Because different people ask me different questions. I work at Silicon Valley. I'm an IT engineer. And with all these social people following me, it's part of my job. I need to respond on daily basis. How will this affect my marriage? My wife hasn't complained. And so for me, I consider it to be cool. Do you think her silence means a problem?
We're both laughing here. Sorry. The point is, we don't know your wife, and she hasn't told us anything, so we don't know if her silence means there's a problem. But it might be worth you asking her before she drifts away from you and leaves you with your 1.something million followers. In fact, in one instance, that's what a wife said. I'm leaving you so that you can be checking on your millions of followers every morning. I'm out, But what does this mean? Yes, you did mention this is your work. So, in some sense, this is part of your life. As we say, this is what puts food on the table. Does your wife know that? Is she on board with it? But even with all of that, it does not give you an out when it comes to making some time to spend with her rather than sending her a message. A face-to-face I love you is much more powerful than a text I love you. If you are not sure, you can ask her. But we do understand. This is your job, and we're not, saying, no, don't answer people. But amidst all of that, make sure you still are making the time. And we use the word making because you have to make. You have to find the time for your wife as well. And one way is to make the time to ask her, this is what I do. What do you think about it? Is it a problem? Once you settle that she's cool with it, like you are cool, more power to you. But don't forget, make time for her also. Because one day you told her she's very special and you asked her to spend the rest of her life with you. And make that life count. Make it an enjoyable one for both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's go to Ohio. And it says here in Ohio, how can we stop social media from affecting our human-to-human life interaction, especially for people in relationship?
Well, that's all what this program is about. We've looked at the positive effects, the benefits. We've looked at possible risks, and we've also looked at how we can use it better. So, maybe, when the website posts the recording, it might be worth listening to again to glean some information as to how you can do this. And you can be creative also, working with the people who are important in your life. We strongly hold that it definitely is important to make time for face-to-face interaction. It's simply a disciplining ourselves to do that. Simply put, we make time for anything that is important to us. So if we believe that our, human relationships are important, yes, we will make time for them. So that's what we encourage. Create the time and fill that time at the very least with talking together. Find out what's going on in each other's lives. This is not prying, but how are you doing? You don't know how's your work going? If you're married, how do you think I'm doing? As a father, as a husband, as a wife, as a mother. Is there something you think I should improve? Is there something you think I should do more? Is there something you think I should do less of? These are I'm just tossing out some discussion questions that you can use, as spouses or even partners, to strengthen your relationship. So by all means, find something to talk about. If you're married, before you got married, you talked. So where have the words gone now that you are married? That's a challenge. Get off the phone, get off the laptop, get away from the screen, and make some time face to face.
All right.
Amma, do you have any questions? Or Sammy can keep going? Sammy, go ahead.
Yes, sir. This is from Springfield in Massachusetts. And it says that social media is all about deceptive. Reverend Crabbe, have you ever seen somebody posted a tattered dress or looking wretched or looking unprepared on social media? No. We always put up our best, and so we create an impression in the minds of people that everything is going well. I know a couple who are just my neighbor, and when you see their social media posting, you may think they are the best of married couples on earth. But I guarantee you, every 2 weeks, the police will have to come into their house because they are always either fighting or there is some level of disagreement. And so one thing to wonder, what kind of deception is social media bringing to our families? How dangerous it is? Any thoughts?
Well, we've talked about this, that and excuse me, an earlier contributor also reminded us about the virtual reality, versus the actual reality. Any one of us can create a personality or a personal profile online, which will not be the real us. That is happening even as we talk. So our elders say, who are you really fooling? If you want everybody to believe that everything is great with you and yet you're suffering. And perhaps this is why one of the issues that research has uncovered is that loneliness is one of the symptoms of excessive internet use, which is kind of, interesting, because the whole idea of social media is to socialize, to be with other people. And yet, more and more people are becoming lonely, even though they are on social media. So this is, and like you said, people always creating the impression everything is okay might be one of the reasons why others are feeling, wow, maybe something is not right with them, or, they don't have this or that, or maybe they should also behave certain ways so that they will also feel accepted. It's sad, but it's a fact we are all living with today, So let's be real, and the only people we can truly be real with are those closest to us. In fact, they already know us more than anybody else. So if we are real with them, it helps us. Thank you.
Thank you very much from Pennsylvania. And it says that it's very interesting because my fiancé and I, if everything goes well, we should be getting married in the next 3 months. My fiancé actually became my fiancé because she loves the fact that I am very active on social media and I'm able to respond to her messages in real time, and that attracted me to her. Now, listening to this program today, I'm beginning to get scared because from what I have gotten from this program, that means that this will eventually become a problem when we go married?
I think we've talked about boundaries also, and that both of you need to agree on how much time you'll be using. See, we did say also that social media can enhance, that is, it can strengthen relationships. Your example shows that yes, it did happen. But going forward, you need to make sure that social media does not replace the relationship you should both have. That's a relationship with each other that you should both have. If you are relating to each other on social media, that is different from relating to other people on social media. And the reason we mention this is that the reality is that in the process of checking out, your relationship with each other, you go to other sites. And that's why we just need to be cautious. How much time am I spending? And could this be time I can invest in my relationship with my spouse? So, great that you discovered each other this way, or you've used this to strengthen your relationship, but that's not all. Somebody already gave us the example of being able to strengthen his relationship with his spouse who's deployed, the military, I would believe, or even if, you're posted, transferred out of where you are living, yes, it can help, but that's not the end all. That's not the final thing to be looking for. Let's work on our human interactions as well. Anytime and whenever we can. It's important. So a couple more questions from you, Sammy?
Yes. Before we wrap up, let me two more. Let's quickly go into this one. So this is coming from Keith, and Keith says that I am a social marketing engineer here in California, and I can tell you that social media is designed purposefully to engage people. And so when two people are sitting face to face, the purpose of social media is defeated. That is why when two married couples go to a restaurant to eat, and as soon as you take your phone and you log on to a social media site, your location on your system will bring things that have been sampled to get your attention. So for instance, you'll begin to see coupons, or you begin to see special pricing that will attract you. And when you are not careful or you are not disciplined, you are likely to be bought by those instances, and then you become addicted, and slowly you get separated from each other whilst sitting together. So I just want to bring this out to your listeners that the design of social media is apparently doing its job very well, because that is what it's all meant to be, in order to engage people outside of the people who are together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your contribution. Great.
Thank you very much. So this will be the last question from my end. And the last question here is coming from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And it says that, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Many times when married couples tend to have a problem, it's also been proven from research that part of the problem comes from social media. I think I heard Mr. Crabbe talk about it a bit, about how our interactions affect our relationships. But the real problem that I want to bring out here is this. Social media is such that when we are not honest to ourselves, one day you will be exposed, because every metadata is saved in the system. And no matter how you deleted your information, when somebody with a technological experience retrieves your document, you will be embarrassed. My caution to everyone, especially married couples, is that things that you cannot do in front of your spouses, don't do it on social media. Good night and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Excellent point on which to end this evening. But just in summary, here's something we picked up from right. We couldn't find any attribution, but it says this: your marriage, and we're going to say for that matter, any close relationship needs to be important. So it says your marriage needs to be your most important relationship. As far as you are concerned, it has to take priority over every other connection with every other human being. If you sense that this is no longer true for you, or if you suspect that your feeling for your spouse may be slipping from the number one position, it's time to stop and take another look at the situation. And this is particularly true if the quantity and quality of your communication with your spouse appears to be going downhill. So listeners, we just want to thank you for spending your time with us. We appreciate it so much. And a big shout out and thanks to Be Inspired Radio Podcast, BeInspiredRadio.com. We're grateful to Sammy Jacobs Abbey and his crew, all his team, his staff, for the support for this that enables all of us around the world to be able to listen, and for us to be able to do this from anywhere. We live in Virginia in the U.S., but here today we've come to you live from New Jersey, also in the U.S. So we're truly grateful to Sami and also to Amma, who's been working the phone controls and engaging with those who phoned in. So a very good night to all of you. And before then, Vivian will send us all off with a prayer and a blessing.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you so much for this discussion. We thank you for
Conference recording has stopped.
all over the world to be able to connect with each other. We pray that you will help us to discipline ourselves to work things out, that social media will not have dominion over us. We will be able to work it out in a way that it will be useful to us and not harmful to us. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
love you. Wamaya, 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 love you.